The Twins have dropped 4 straight after getting swept by the Yankees and losing the opener to the Pirates. We'll talk about all that. We'll look at the upcoming schedule, and we'll talk concern level with Pablo Lopez. This is Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello again, and welcome back to Locked On Twins. I'm your host, Brandon Warren. You can unfollow me on Twitter at Brandon_WARNEN. Joining me as he does is Mr. Dave Brown out of the home office and elsewhere. Follow him on Twitter at AnswerDaveBrown. What's up?
Brandon, I think I'm going to go on Twitter and unfollow a bunch of Twins fans because it's not a lot of fun right now on the Twitter.
It's not fun anymore. Hey, by the way, thanks for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts and also on YouTube, free, no matter where you find us. So again, and also as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, we're your team every day. Love to hear from you in the comments. 5-star reviews are huge. Like, subscribe on YouTube. Today's episode brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use the code all lowercase LockedOnMLB, and you get a first deposit match up to $100. Also, you can get play-by-play every pitch of the Twins hometown broadcast with Chris Atterbury, and right now it's Paul Molitor on SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search Twins. Up next on Saturday, Simeon Woods-Richardson against Carmen Mlodzinski, with first pitch scheduled for 3:05 Central at PNC Park in Pittsburgh. And then it'll be Bailey Ober and Jared Jones in the finale before the Twins come back home and face the Rockies. So speaking of Rocky, the last 4 games, including the sweep at the hands of the Yankees in the Bronx, things have been a little rocky of late. Not much to get too excited about in the Yankees series. It looked a lot like vintage Twins Yankees. And even in the opener of the Pirates series, Twins offense just completely, it was like they were swinging a wet pool noodle out there.
Well, there is a river nearby, so maybe they were thinking about water sports or something instead of baseball, but it wasn't. They did collect some hits. They had a couple of opportunities to score some runs. And, they made a couple of strange moves on the bases, at least one in particular, really kind of short-circuited an inning kind of midway through there with Buxton, I think, anticipating a throw to third that ended up going to second. And, you still can't get yourself picked off there or kicked off. So, yeah.
Well, and, stranding the bases loaded early doesn't help. Stranding 9 total. For the longest stretch, the Pirates only had 2 hits. In fact, that's all they got off Joe Ryan before getting 2 in the 8th inning against Griffin Jacks. But both gave up home runs. And then the strike zone was a little wonky. There just was not a lot of things going in the Twins' favor in this one. And, you can blame any one of a number of things. I'm not saying the umpire behind the plate, who I think was named Paul Clemens, which reminds me of a guy who used to pitch for like the Astros, I think, named Paul Clemens. And I think I read that he was a fill-in call-up, and his zone was pretty ugly to the degree that Derek Showman, the assistant hitting coach, got thrown out. But thoughts on the game? Joe Ryan, I thought, was great. And other than that, the offense was pretty quiet. What'd you think?
Well, I mean, if you want to go dispassionate bystander, it was fun to see O'Neill Cruz hit a home run almost into the river. I think it made it to a van down by the river. It wasn't quite into the Allegheny, but it was almost out of the ballpark completely. So he really got all that one, and about 115 miles an hour. So, I mean, aesthetically, that was a nice run to give up, I suppose. But the Twins just didn't have, it was a better pitching performance than they've gotten recently from people other than Joe Ryan. But they've got to score some runs. It's tough when you're not facing Jones and Skeens and you're not scoring runs against the Pirates. So Mitch Keller's a decent, pitcher, but they had some opportunities there, and it's just a bummer that they squandered what they did have.
Yeah, 1 for 8 with runners in scoring position. Certainly not going to get it done. And Pirates only 0 for 3, which again goes to show that they just didn't have that many guys on all night long. David Bednar, again, continues to be nasty at the back end of that bullpen. And Mitch Keller is solid. I mean, he's really come a long way here in the last couple of years. But at the same time, too, if you're going to get shut out by the Pirates, you're definitely wanting it to be by Skeens or Jared Jones, who –
well, hopefully not Jared Jones, since they still have to face him. But
right,
on this note of the runners in scoring position thing, I looked something up.
Okay.
And it takes a lot sometimes to do that. But
right.
Looking at runners in scoring position, the stats, the Twins OPS with runners in scoring position is 647, which is 4th worst in the league. Only the White Sox, Cardinals, and Athletics are worse. And 221 batting average, 291 on base percentage, and 356 slugging. So that's bad. Would you like to take a guess at who leads the league in with runners in scoring position?
If it's
their OPS.
If it's Cleveland, I'm going to be so upset.
Don't get too upset, Brandon. It's just a game. Yes, the Guardians, 291. 386 on base percentage, 491 slugging. That's a really good player. I don't know who it is, but he's making the All-Star team. 877 OPS leads the league by 13 points over the Brewers, and the Royals are 3rd. So that gives you a little bit of an indication about how they're coming through with ducks on the pond. Phillies 4th, so Yankees 5th, Orioles 6th. So some of your better teams and some of your more surprising teams at the head of that line. Meanwhile, the Twins near the back.
I feel like when something goes sideways for the Twins, whether it's shoddy umpiring or just any small thing, it's enough to derail them in that given game. Or the way that things sequence out for them, it's like, oh, we made a small error. This is going to cost us a game. When teams good teams especially overcome that kind of stuff. And I still believe that deep down, the bones of this team, the foundation of this team is a good team, but when things go sideways, it just feels like there's not a lot of reason to believe that they can overcome that. And what's strange, moreover, is that their scoring differential between the 7th inning and the end of a game, any given game, they have one of the best of those. But at the same time, you don't get the sense that anything good is going to happen when they're down 2-0 late and even 3-0 late. And again, I know that's part of that's the condition of, in baseball, things just don't happen that are good when you're down 3 runs late. But I just don't get the sense that the Twins, it doesn't feel like they fight the adversity of bad umpires or making mistakes like the Buxton, spinning his wheels. I don't know. I feel like it costs them at a higher level than it does other teams.
Well, they've played 63 games so far. So getting to be a decent chunk of the season, that's more than a third of the season. And, what do we have? We have a 12-game winning streak in 17 out of 20.
Yep.
And then the rest of that, they have not played particularly well at all. So it is going to seem, we know that they can play really well for a pretty long stretch of time. But there's a couple other stretches of time, the before and the after of that stretch, where they're not. So that's it's not your eyes aren't deceiving you. They've been pretty blah for a couple of big portions of the season, equally so, maybe a little bit bigger, the non-17 or 17 out of 20. So that, two-thirds of the season, they've been really nothing to write home about. So it's your eyes aren't deceiving you at all.
Well, it still makes me wonder if I'm missing the mark. I still think it's a good baseball team. I think the pieces are there. I think they're a starter away, but I don't know. Sometimes you look at it and it just feels like it's more than that, which is frustrating. Hey, let's take a quick break. And then when we come back, I want to talk to you about Pablo Lopez because I want to know what your concern level is. The numbers are not pretty, but the secondary stuff doesn't look too bad. But again, first, a quick pause here. And if you are in the market for life insurance, Policygenius is the place to go. And it's not, if you have some already, maybe you need more. It never hurts to take a second look and make sure that people in your family are taken care of after you're gone. I have it for my wife and my 2 children. And, it's not hard for me to think real hard about a time that I lost someone in my life where life insurance would come into play. As you probably know, my brother passed away a couple weeks ago. So all of this to me is really near and dear. And so with Policygenius, they will help you find life insurance from a very varied different group of companies. With Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies at just up as low as $292 a year, $292 for $1 million worth of coverage. Some options also offer you same-day approval and help you avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policygenius helps you compare your options from top companies, and their team of licensed experts is on hand to help talk you through it. And the nice thing is, too, they are not paid by anybody to promote one thing or another. So you're going to get the best advice possible. There's no commissions or anything like that. They got thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot. And again, no incentive to recommend one insurer or another. So check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonmlb or click the link in the description on this video or podcast to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. Again, that's policygenius.com/lockedonmlb. Are you looking up Policygenius right now, Dave Brown?
I am. Can you hear me on the keyboard or something? Is that weird?
Yeah, you sound like I can't think of a famous keyboardist, but no, I could hear it.
Rick Wakeman from Yes. How about him?
Yeah. Sounds great. Pablo Lopez, 5.45 ERA. Fastball velo right about where it was last year, but there is a few different things that are kind of leading him in this direction. A bizarrely low 64.1% strand rate. Last year he was 76% and change, so about a 12% or so drop. A little worse home run luck, a couple fewer ground balls. All of this is my long way of saying his expected ERA is 3.16, his FIP is 4.14, and his xFIP is 3.43. On a scale of 0 to 100, Dave Brown, how concerned are you with Pablo Lopez?
On 0 to 100, you say?
Yep, with 100 being the highest.
23.
I was going to say 25, so I mean, it's a right in lockstep with you.
Yeah. Maybe people don't recall. I think they probably do, or would if they were asked. He kind of had stretches like this last year where his ERA was not keeping pace with his expected numbers.
Well, and not only that, but there was a lot of talk by Twins fans of how good Arise was when Pablo was merely, solid or adequate or whatever.
Right.
Meanwhile, Luis Arise at that time was hitting 400. Not as many of those complaints now, but they're starting to pop up again, even though Arise isn't even on the Marlins anymore, which is hysterical in and of itself. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm below 30 for my concern level with Lopez, and all the secondary stats look good, except home runs per 9. He's 165. If he gets down to his 1.11, which was also not only last year's rate, but his career rate,
right?
Really no reason to believe that he's not pretty similar to the guy he was last year.
He's given up a lot of on the percentages, extra base hits on his sweeper. His sweeper has been, particularly egregiously against him. I mean, his expected batting average on the sweepers, 194. but the actual slugging percentage is 548. So he's given up 4 homers and 5 doubles and 62 at bats against the sweeper. But he's had a little what looks like some bad luck there because his expected slugging percentage, and maybe some people are rolling their eyes at these expected numbers, but it's only 301. That to me doesn't sound sustainable, from a negative standpoint. I think he's got to get luckier. He's got to get more. It's got to align more accurately with how he's actually throwing. So I think and when you've given up a few home runs too many, everything else is going to be magnified.
Well, so pitch info on Fangraphs has about a 10-run drop, actually 11.2 from 6.0 to negative 5.2 on his. They say his weighted slider, which doesn't have sweeper branched out on that. So that's what Pitch Value says. Pitch Info has it at 11.0 exactly. So basically a rounding error. And then it also does not particularly care for his sinker, about a 10-run drop there. But the 4-seam fastball is up about 6 runs worth of value. To me, if you're so his fastball is 7.8 runs, according to Pitch Info. Pitch Value is a little further down on it. But either way, having good data, good numbers on your 4-seam fastball, to me is encouraging because that's like usually the one pitch you can bank on getting hit a little bit harder. Whereas with a sweeper, I think if you tinker with it, you shorten it up or make it faster. There are a lot of different things you can do to tweak the way it's shaped and how it looks. I'm encouraged that the fastball value, the 4-seam fastball, is as high as it is. And I think the rest of his pitches can kind of follow in turn with some more tinkering.
Yeah. So if you look at, Fangraphs' his expected ERA is like not quite 2.5 runs. It's 3.16. So if you put all his stuff into a computer, that's the number that you'd think would come out. And his actual ERA is 5.45. So that's a huge, again, just not a sustainable difference. So the problem is, I suppose, that it's just coming at a bad time. I mean, that the Twins have kind of needed him to be absolutely as sharp as he could be a few more times than has come through. I mean, he's a guy that's going to take the blame, when things don't go well. And he has in post-game interviews. He says, my guys needed me and I haven't come through. I think, that can be taken too far. I think maybe there's a little bit of that in there. I think there's an adjustment to be made with the sweeper that he's, he had to do that last year. And that's one of the, that's one of the times one of the points when he started to get hot as a pitcher in a good way, that, he made some in-season adjustments and then kind of cruised for a while. And that's, it looks like he's going to have to make a little bit more of an adjustment again to get going in a positive way.
How do you get hot in a bad way as a pitcher?
Well, we've seen Louis Varland at the beginning.
Okay. Yeah, so, no, you got a point there. Yeah, and I think too the struggles are more magnified. Like you said, the team is losing his starts, or like if you win a game 8-5 or lose a game 8-5, like either way, you probably didn't get great starting pitching or your bullpen, whatever. But you focus on those issues more in a losing effort. And again, I know I'm not saying anything all that controversial, but sometimes in baseball, we have to be reminded of just the basics. Like good teams play like dog crap over extended periods of time. Last year, and I keep hammering this, and I went back and checked it just to be sure. The Rangers, who won the World Series, had a stretch of 4-6 over 20 games. Now, granted, they won 90 games. They did not win the division, if I'm not mistaken, and still won the World Series. That means you don't necessarily have to kill it in the regular season for things to come together in October. But all I'm saying is, I'm not saying, this means, because people keep twisting my words too. Like, I haven't said the Twins are playing well in 3 weeks. Guess what they were doing 3 weeks ago? They were winning every night.
Right.
They're playing like, crap right now. And I'm saying they're playing like crap, but also, when you're hitting like crap and the umpiring isn't good and you're not making timely plays, like you can mention all those things without leaning on one as a crutch. And I'm not trying to lean on one as a crutch. But at the same time, too, I think the bones of this team are good enough to be a good team. They're playing like crap right now. We're calling it like we see it. I just don't understand why I can't go from 3 weeks ago, this was a good team playing well, to this is a good team playing poorly. Like, am I saying something that is like so controversial that I'm just missing it?
I don't know. Maybe it's me. Maybe I didn't understand the joke. Don't measure yourself too much by what happens on Twitter, Brandon. So that's not a
Yeah.
good place to do that. Hey, here's the thing. We kind of alluded to it already. It's not the biggest problem with how the Twins are playing or the Twins season, but it's definitely the second biggest. You look at what the Guardians are doing. They're playing out of their minds. They're way above. I don't want to say over their skis or over their heads, or things are going way too well to be
They lost to the
sustainable.
Marlins tonight, so maybe that could be their comeuppance.
But, I mean, it just goes to show you never know, I guess. But yeah, they're I'll eat my hat and your hat if they finish 30 games over 500. Seriously, I mean, it's not.
No, you're right. His 30 games over 500 is an astonishing season. It's what does that come out to? Like
96 and 66.
66? Yeah. I mean, that's really hard to do, even if your division isn't good. And the Central is quite a bit better than it was last year. So, by the way, remember, it's Chris and Paul, Sirius XM tomorrow, 3:05 Central. It's SWR against Carmen Malinsky. I think I said that right.
It doesn't sound right anymore. I don't know, but it's not how it's spelled.
Either way, download Sirius XM. It's the SXM app. Search Twins, and you can listen to the hometown broadcast. Let's take a quick second, and when we come back, I got a couple Gleeman news bits that I think are interesting enough for us to dedicate some time to. But again, first, a quick break. Our friends at PrizePicks want you to know that they are North America's largest daily fantasy sports platform. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS because it's just you against the numbers. You pick more than, you pick less than on 2 to 6 stat projections and watch the money come rolling in. If you're a risky one, you can do the demon picks. Those are marked in red. They can accelerate your heartbeat, but also your winnings up to 100 times whatever you bet. So you could turn $10 into 1,000. Again, it's risky, but put your money where your mouth is, right? But if you like the safer approach, those are the Goblin picks. They're marked in green. They keep you in the green and landing more consistent victories, but via lower payouts. But again, you have options here. If you're into the NBA, you can pick more than or less than on three-pointers made to turnovers committed. We're now one game into the finals, and I have to be honest with you, I'm delighted that Dallas got smoked. So definitely not bitter about the Western Conference Finals. And for baseball, too, you can pick more than or less than on pitcher strikeouts, first inning runs, pretty much any stat under the sun you can bet on. So download the app today and enter code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's LOCKEDONMLB. It's all one word. It's all in lowercase, and you can get a first deposit match up to $100. Join PrizePicks today. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right, Mr. Dave Brown, we're coming down the home stretch here. Gleeman says Louis Varland was asked to work on his changeup. I think the Twins have stolen some pitching intelligence, the intelligentsia from some of the intelligentsia from the Rays. And I think the Rays are one of those teams that loves changeups, perhaps more than others. That was kind of a thing early in the Falvey and Levine era when they hired Josh Kalk, who had been in pitching development for the Rays before that. So I think it's interesting. I also think, too, anytime they're asking Varland to do something different, really, I think for me, it comes down to, can he keep the ball in the ballpark? Because that's really been his big struggle. Now, a question I would have is, do you have any inclination, let's say, knock on wood, it doesn't happen, but Brock Stewart has a setback. Is any part of you inclined to say, hey, Louis, put your bullpen glove on and let's go to Minneapolis and get you back in this bullpen and just, really, really, nuke the back of this bullpen and just make it the best version of itself?
Well, I've suggested that before.
Yep.
That's when we'll see Varland again on the Twins, it'll be as a relief pitcher. Now, a couple things have happened since then, or at least one thing. Alcala's come back and he's been strong, and Duran has gotten going. I don't know, like if there's a huge need there, as maybe there might have been before. And I don't know, is the changeup does he need to work on another pitch to be a relief pitcher?
I think it's just as a starter.
Right. So I think they're still thinking, the first thing I thought of was, well, this is to help him as a starting pitcher, not necessarily as a reliever, because he had a changeup last year and it was kind of stinky, and he was great as a relief pitcher. So, I mean, maybe sample size or timing or whatever. So every pitch in the arsenal helps. But so, like, two things, I see him possibly helping the Twins again this season as a relief pitcher, but it seems like they're giving him time to realize his dream or whatever, as his fulfillment as a starter. So,
yeah, and I think I look at the bullpen numbers. This is entering play tonight, and there's a lot to like here. 3.56 ERA, 3.68 FIP, 3.84 xFIP. Those are all decent enough. They're 13th in MLB and Fangraphs WAR, tied with St. Louis and the Mets, and ahead of the Yankees, who, their bullpen's been pretty nasty, 2.90 ERA.
Yeah.
But 9.4 strikeouts per nine, 3.5 walks, 0.88 homers per nine. Like, all of those are pretty solid peripherals. And then you consider that a lot of their runs have been maybe Jay Jackson, who's not around anymore, and a few other guys who are not around anymore. And I don't know, I think if you adjust for, a little better idea of how they've pitched in big spots, it's a good bullpen and maybe doesn't need to be as addressed as much as the rotation. The only problem I have is, can you get Louis Varland good enough to where he actually addresses the need in a rotation? And the need boils down to, who do you bounce from the rotation? Simeon Woods Richardson's pretty much the only one who actually would have an option used. I mean, they're not going to send out Bailey Ober. And SWR has been one of the best in this rotation since he, got the ball that first time. I think Joe Ryan has outpitched him, and that's probably about it. So as much as I want to see Varland come back, and I know that, someone will ding a hamstring or something and it'll make sense, I am kind of caught in the middle of where he can help this team more in the near term.
I feel like, as a starting pitcher, Louis, at least right now, would be replacing an injury, that kind of thing. I think if Paddock struggles, and Paddock was throwing harder than he had all season in his previous start, so it doesn't seem like an injury is an issue there. I don't know if it's I think it's one of those situations where if one of the guys goes down and you need to bring up Varland for a period, then that's one thing. I still say, and you said it before too, they need, what they really need is what a lot of teams need, and that is a starting pitcher who is going to push the needle, who's going to be a little more towards like the ideal Lopez or Ryan or Ober at his best.
Sonny Gray replacement, if we're
something like that. Yes,
if we're candid, even if it's not as a number one, it's as a very good number three, with the understanding that Pablo and Joe Ryan and this guy would all be relatively interchangeable.
You're not going to count on Louis as giving you number three starter type stuff. You're hoping for 5, maybe 4 at the most, and that they need to. I don't know if it's Festa or,
that's another good one.
That could be the guy. I haven't looked up like his last couple, but he seemed to be. He was getting his walk down.
I think he had a pretty good one tonight. I'll pull it up here because I want to see too. But I know that there is a page that grades minor league starts, and they were pretty impressed with Festa. Yeah, Saints lost 3-2 to Syracuse at home. But Festa, you know what? Minor League Baseball's website is super slow. So give me some grace here.
Well, they're trying to get up to the majors too. It's they're
exactly 5 innings, 6 strikeouts, 1 walk, 2 earned, 5 hits. They said he had good stuff. 3.56 ERA. Ronnie Enriquez with 3 shutout innings, and then Ryan Jensen had the audacity to give up 1 run, an unearned run, to take the loss. But in general, a pretty tightly played game. It was extra inning rule. That's why it was the 10th inning. But yeah, so I think Festa could definitely be a factor, and I think Caleb Bosley would be pretty easy to take off the 40-man if you wanted to make that move. But I don't know. We'll see.
Is that how you pronounce Bushley?
I guess so. Yeah, I looked it up and it said Bosley, and I was like, all right, I'll roll with it because it's super easy, kind of like Majinski, right?
Yeah, first Majinski and now this. I don't know. These people with all these letters that don't do what they say. It's very confusing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, that's all we got for this edition. We'll have a whole bunch more. We'll go around the minor leagues and around the rest of the division. The Guardians lost. Royals had a crazy comeback win. And the White Sox won, Dave. How about that?
This team isn't going to lose 15 in a row. Not this team.
No, but you know what?
Maybe later in the year, but
yeah,
not tonight.
You might be surprised if you looked at Twitter, though, and thought that the Twins were still any good. But anyhow, that's it. That's a wrap for this edition of Locked On Twins. For Brandon Warren, for Dave Brown, this is Brandon Warren signing off, saying thank you so much, and we'll see ya tomorrow night.